What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well. And today I just got home from checking out the new Darren Aronofsky film, and that film is called Caught Stealing. Directed by Darren Aronofsky and written by Charlie Huston, who also wrote the book that this is based on that came out in 2004. The film stars people like Butler, Zoe Kravitz, Regina King, Matt Smith, and more. And if you're a cinephile, whether you like his films or not, I think Darren Aronofsky is just one of those directors that people just want to see his movies. They want to see what he's gonna do. He's an ambitious filmmaker, and I've always really appreciated his films, whether I love them or not, whether I find them to be revisitable films or not. He's just a director I really enjoy. And so without further ado, let's get into what this film is all about, and then we'll get into my thoughts on the film. Set in 1998 New York City, the story follows Hank Thompson, a former high school baseball phenom now working as a bartender. When his reckless neighbor Rusk asks him to cat sit, Hank stumbles into a nightmare involving Russian mobsters, corrupt cops, sadistic hitmen, and a mysterious key hidden in the cat's litter box. What starts as a simple favor spirals into a violent, absurd, and darkly comedic odyssey across the seedy underbelly of New York City. And I'm so happy to start this off by saying that I loved Caught Stealing. I found this to be probably one of the best films I've seen this year, and I'm not being hyperbolic in any way, shape, or form. And of course, that's my personal take, but I walked out of this theater on a real high. I really enjoyed this film. One thing I said to my buddy Rob of the Big Rob Theory, who I saw this film with at the theater, was that I feel like in the modern day, one thing you see consistently is pretty generic characters that you've seen many, many times before, or character archetypes that are super familiar. And while I do think that this film has elements that are familiar to other films, one thing that I really appreciated right out of the gate when it comes down to Butler's character Hank in this film is the film takes time to set this character up. Not only with a backstory that gets you to understand where he is now, but just little things, moral codes, different things that he lives by, little mannerisms that he has, things he has to do, things he doesn't want to do, things he's weak to, and demons that he personally carries around with him. And at its core, for a while, I was wondering what this film was trying to say, and as we got to the third act of the film, it became so abundantly clear. This is a film about the collateral damage that our life can kind of have going on all around us if we aren't able to take accountability and if we allow the past to weigh on our shoulders. As somebody who has certainly had the past weigh on my shoulders many times and oftentimes thinks, what if, and what ended up happening, or this was all because of this. A lot of times when I do go back and reflect on those moments, it's pretty easy to dissect that the central piece of it a lot of times was me, that I ended up kind of being my own worst enemy. And this film really tackles that with Butler's character. He gives a really great performance here as a character who, again, is troubled by his past because of a specific event that led to where he is today. And it's made him blind to the things that he has in his life today, but has also led to him having demons. It's led to him having addictions. It's led to him being blind to, being able to just have accountability. And I think that Butler showcases that here really well with a character that's also pretty cool and fun and likable and funny at times. And overall, it's just an interesting character to lead this movie. And I think Butler was just great in this lead role. And like I mentioned before, he's got a great cast alongside him. Zoe Kravitz is great in this film. Matt Smith is a fun presence in this film. But on top of that, you also have Regina King here, who I think is a really great part of this film and definitely gives a really meaty performance. You have people like Liev Schreiber in the film, Kane, Bad Bunny. The film is stacked with a lot of big names that I really enjoyed seeing throughout the entirety of the film that all gave really good performances. There was nobody in this film that I felt was lacking on the performance level. And then when it comes down to the overall filmmaking, Darren Aronofsky is typically not a director that's going to cut corners when it comes down to filmmaking. So in terms of the practical effects, practical locations, costume design, set design, makeup that's used throughout the course of the film, just the way that the film looks and feels, the musical score, everything about this film is really tight, alongside a really tight script. That's part of what I really enjoyed about this film, is that while there are a couple of areas that I felt meandered from time to time, a couple of things that I felt like could have been expanded upon a little bit more, this ultimately is a really strong script that gets going pretty quickly from the very beginning and doesn't have a whole lot of downtime, but utilizes that downtime to really expand upon the characters, or just have us being able to see a little bit more of who these characters are, kind of peeking behind the curtain a little bit more, most notably Butler's character. So I think that this is a film that really utilizes its time well. It's conservatively, kind of ran in terms of its runtime. I think it's like an hour 47 with credits, so it doesn't waste a lot of your time, but it jam-packs a lot that happens in the film. It's a film that moves. It's a film with a lot of events. It's a film that gets pretty crazy at a certain point. I was kind of surprised by that because based on the trailers, it looked like it was going to be a cool, like punk rock, like boots on the ground, like got caught up in some mess with the wrong people kind of movie that was going to be entertaining and, kind of have like that kind of grimy New York vibe to it. And while it has all of those things, what surprised me as the movie was playing out is that at a certain point, that collateral damage part of things really starts to pick up. And there are a lot of characters in this film that are off left and right at a certain point. Sometimes side characters, sometimes random henchmen, villain characters, sometimes main characters right alongside Austin Butler. Some of them were pretty surprising. And I think this is a film that may turn off some people because it isn't necessarily a film that is going to do right by all of the characters. It isn't necessarily a film that's going to do right by all the characters that are quote unquote good. But this is a film where the good get bad things that happen to them, the neutral have bad things that happen to them, the bad people get things that are bad that happen to them as well. And so it's one of those films where it isn't trying to paint like a, hey, this is a happy-go-lucky ending. It's really a movie about Austin Butler throughout the course of it, having to stop running away from his past, running away from his issues, running away from the things that he's causing, and kind of deal with things head on. And I think that this film tackles that well in a really interesting script that's well written, well handled by its actors, well realized by the director and everybody else that was part of making this film. And the film also just utilizes, again, some great, cinematography, but also some great car stunt work in the film as well. There's some pretty cool car chases and some just driving sequences as well. And I'm also a sucker for a good call and response element to a film. Most films have that, right? They set something up earlier in the film that's paid off later on, or they call back to that later on in the film. But I think what this film did so well is that there are big things that seem like they make sense to be the call and response moments of this film, but there's also these small moments of dialogue that might just go over your head in the moment, or you wouldn't think much of it in a sequence that will come back later on in a really pivotal point. And I think that this film, when I look at this script, is the most impressive part because there's so many little moving pieces that end up being paid off later on in the film in a really satisfying or interesting way that more often than not was tied to Austin Butler's character's growth throughout the course of the film, or through his character arc, growth or not. And so yeah, this is a film with very human characters at the center of it. This is a film that has some really dark elements to it. This is a film where there's going to be shootouts and characters that you don't want to see die actually dying. There are some moments of just like humor, there's some moments of levity, but there's some great moments of darkness and some grittiness as well. And more than anything, this was just an entertaining watch. I had a really good time with it at the movies. There was maybe a handful of moments in the film that I found to be a little bit slow. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of players. You got corrupt cops in the mix, you got, gang members, Russian mobsters, and then there is a group of Jewish characters in the film as well. But they were a part of the film that I oftentimes wish they had expanded upon a little bit more. So that would probably be a gripe for me. Just a couple of things here and there that I would have liked to have seen them expanded upon. But ultimately, by the time the movie was over and the credits were rolling, I was looking at the screen thinking, this is just a really tight hour and 47 minute strong film with a solid beginning, middle, and end. It takes our character on a journey. There's a couple of areas you have to suspend disbelief like any movie, but ultimately it's engaging, it's gritty, it's tense, it's funny at times, it's sad at other points, and more than anything, it creates a main character who doesn't feel like a generic, you've seen this kind of character a million times. There are elements you could say, oh, it's familiar to this or familiar to that. But when you see a lot of characters in the modern day, it just feels like another reskinned version of a character you've seen many times before. And in the case of this film, they just gave this character that Austin Butler plays a lot of little nuances that are specific to him. His love for the Giants, the baseball team, his love for his mom and the fact that he feels like he needs to call his mom every single day, a moral code that he lives by, his alcoholism, little things that were central to who he is, that showed weakness, that also showed strength, that gave you, again, a moral compass that this character has, little things that make him who he is, that make him tick, but also these things that hold him back. And I think that he created a really interesting but also incredibly flawed character here that you can both root for but also kind of see why he is his own villain at times. And I think that Austin Butler understood the assignment and really portrayed that very well. I think Darren Aronofsky handled the entire story and the characters really well from the top as a director. And then you have the rest of the really solid filmmaking. So with all that said, I think if you're a fan of Darren Aronofsky, you're probably going to have a good time with this film. If you're a fan of Austin Butler, you're probably going to enjoy this film. If you're a fan of the rest of the cast members, you're probably really going to enjoy this film. If you're a fan of a good, like, grimy street level New York, like corrupt cop, cops and mobsters kind of movie, you're probably really going to enjoy this film. If you're looking for a film that has some good twists and turns and some moments that are going to make you go, oh shit, I didn't expect that, you're probably going to enjoy this film. I just thought this was a really strong film from beginning to end in terms of filmmaking, performance, story. And when I look at how many movies I've seen this year that I've walked out of saying, yeah, that was a good fun time, but it was familiar or was similar to things I've seen before, this film does something unique and interesting. It's fun to watch, it's engaging, it's very well made, and I think it's certainly probably one of the better films I've seen this year. So curious to hear what you guys have to say. That's my thoughts on Caught Stealing. Leave some comments down below. Did you like the film? Did you not like the film? Whatever the case may be, I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.